Longestake here with a World of Tanks video for the first time in what seems like forever. And of course, we're going to come back into videos with my favorite tank in the game, the Panther. Now, here we find myself playing the Panther as top tier on an open map. This is, of course, the highway map, which is basically picture perfect situation for the Panther. Because the Panther plays the best at range, and while it does just fine against tier 8s and 9s, it gets to be a real bully when it's top tier. Because then its armor is really, really useful. Specifically the turret armor and the upper front plate of the hull. So here, long range map. Now, as you see there, one thing to note about the Panther, it has amazing accuracy when sitting still and fully aimed. On the move, the soft stats that Wargaming throws in the game, that would be the bloom under both turret and hull traverse and movement, is pretty horrendous. So it's a very, very bad tank at firing on the move and expecting to hit. Now, if you're close enough, of course, your target will fill the whole reticle and you still should be able to hit. But it does best under controlled movement. Like as you've seen, I inched up over the ridge very slowly. Now that has a purpose. That does actually keep the bloom down a little bit. If you go slow, as you see here, I can actually just kind of inch up and take a shot there. Now, of course, I have to be very careful, and I do make some mistakes here, because as you can see, the buggy and the Super Hellcat is back there. Actually, the Super Chaffee was spotted, but I do get hit by a Super Hellcat here in a second because I overextend. And for whatever reason, I actually see people charge me like the Britain Panther did. He showed up, fired one shot of premium, and then died. All trying to kill me. Now that was the Super Hellcat that I was referencing. He got a hit into the side of my turret because I poked forward a little too far. Now this poor T-50-2, he's just done a barrel roll, and I've just double tracked him. So I snagged a little bit of damage and a little bit of assistance because I tracked him, you've seen him repair, and then retrack him again. Now I'm slowly inching up, and I get a shot into the Rudy. Now you notice I didn't get spotted. The reason I didn't get spotted is that he had his turret shoved into the corner, and he will spot me here. If your turret is actually behind hard cover, like he was actually nosed into the corner of the building there, you can't detect anybody if none of your observation devices are out in the open. It would be the case like in real life if a tank was pulled front first around a building and it got shot in the flank. Well, there would be no viewports for the crew to be able to see where the shot came from. They would just hear that they got hit. And that's what happened there. So if you ever get shot and you can't detect who's shooting you, maybe you have actually pulled into cover and you can't spot it because there are no viewports available. The game does actually register that. You have spotting points and you have detection points. Those actually are available a few places online. Wargaming did actually put out an article a few years ago about it, but they don't put it in the game. That's something I think they really should put into place so that you have that information while in the game. Now I haven't moved forward with my teammates. You've seen the T-37 and the Cromwell B have moved up. The reason is I spend half my time basically looking at the map. That's why my map is so large. I'm reading the situation there at the city's edge, and it doesn't look good. As you see, I have been moving myself slowly back towards base in case that T-78 and Basoto die. They're not in the greatest of positions. The T-78's in a little bit better situation. But with the King Tiger C and the T-29 pushing up, I was suspecting I may be needed back at base. And I'm trying to tell the Cromwell B to fall back. Not necessarily that I expect him to fall back, but it's more of letting him know I am not there to cover him. Now, instead of going all the way back to base, I'm thinking to myself, If I come here to this middle position, I can actually possibly cover the Cromwell B, and maybe also be in ready position to defend the base if needed. We've got a number of people in between their city force and our base, and then as time plays out, they've actually stopped and moved back. And yes, I was just destroying the cover behind or between me and that STRV, because pretty much all of the buildings there are destructible except for a couple of the silos. So if defenders are taking cover, and that applies to both bases here, there is a non-destructible house on the southwest base that my team spawned at, and there is a silo that's non-destructible and a tower on this base that the enemy has. But now that I see that the city push from the enemies has faltered and failed and they've actually turned around, that allows me, because I went to the middle, I wasn't stuck on and absolutely committed to one way or the other. So this time I'm deciding to come through the middle, and I'm going to work a slightly gentler grade, because the Panther has decent but not great gun depression, and I need to keep my hull covered. So I'm going to work against this T-150, only showing my turret front, which is actually decently armored. People normally think of the Panther as, you know, just a regular old medium that has no armor, but that's not quite the truth. The turret will bounce shots, and the upper plate on the hull will, but you just cannot get shot in the sides. The sides are huge, and the engine deck, of course, where I take a hit from the artillery. The engine deck and the sides are huge and thin, so you got to keep them covered, and I'm trying to use terrain to the best of my ability to do that. And then, of course, I can just out DPM anything I see here because, well, I'm in a Panther. And the Panther has a highly, highly underrated rate of fire, and the DPM stacks up. And you do not need to be using premium. You do not need to pretty much ever. I know I have the 18 rounds, but I can't remember the last time I've ever fired any. Now I get spotted, and it's obviously not the King Tiger C or the Super Hellcat. So it's the Scorpion, which he just got detected now. He must have been rolled forward into the bushes there, and he must have pulled back. And then the T-50-2 in our team probably spotted him as he rolled back. I'm going to roll up here and get a few sneaky shots into the side of the King Tiger C's turret. And that is pretty much going to do it for my damage. This is just basically a solid game in the Panther. I have about 2,500 damage. I have some spotting. I have some damage blocked. And this is just a nice, solid, overall Panther game that turned out to be an ace, surprisingly, because my base experience is pretty high. As we look here, I actually had premium for this time period, so I got quite a bit of experience, and it was my ×2 as well. But again, about 2,500 damage, which, along with the spotting, netted me almost 1,200 base experience. As you see, we also had a very good T-50-2 who had a great game. He actually edged me out in experience. But I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.